Now, finally, we can talk about chapter 12. Chapter 12 is energy and respiration. Now, I trust this chemical equation here is very familiar to all of you. Glucose plus oxygen is converted to carbon dioxide, water, and energy in the form of ATP, which is synthesized in the mitochondria. But this equation here is actually an oversimplification of what actually happens during respiration. Now, when I say respiration, don't get me wrong, okay? I'm not talking about breathing. I'm talking about the breakdown of glucose in the presence of oxygen to form energy. Respiration is not breathing, okay? Now, actually, here it says oxygen, and I just mentioned oxygen just now, but respiration can also occur without oxygen, and that will be something we'll be exploring in this chapter as well. Now, just a heads up, this chapter has a lot of chemical equations and a lot of chemical names. Now, if you have not taken chemistry, do not worry, it is a lot of memory work basically. And as long as you stick to the diagrams that I'm showing you, you should be fine and you should do okay. Again, this is a very memory-based chapter. There's not a lot of understanding or concepts that are abstract going on here. Okay, so it's memory work, guys. Very straightforward chapter. Even past years are straightforward. Now let's start with chapter 1A, the need for energy and ATP. Let's start off with this question. Why do living organisms like you and me need energy? Why do we need ATP? And the answer, simply put, is to work. But now when we say work, we don't mean like I'm studying, I'm playing football, or I'm watching a video using my eyes and that is work. No. When we say work, we mean reactions that require energy. For example, anabolic reactions. Anabolic reactions is the building of smaller molecules to make larger molecules. Sorry, I'll say that again. It's the building of larger molecules from smaller molecules. The opposite of that is catabolic reactions, which is the breakdown of larger molecules to form smaller molecules. In this process, energy is released. So anabolic reactions require energy, whereas catabolic reaction here releases energy. Now, for example, there's protein synthesis of glycogen, DNA replication, polymerization of any sort. They are all considered anabolic reactions. Another example of work here is active transport. You know, the sodium-potassium pump. Even exocytosis and endocytosis would require energy. Movement requires energy as well. Every time I move my hands and wave them around, I'm contracting muscles. For microorganisms, movement of cilia and flagella are also movement that requires energy. Other than that, maintenance of a constant body temperature is also requiring energy here, especially in warm-blooded animals. The technical term here is endotherms. Me and you, warm-blooded, we are considered endotherms, and our temperature of our body, no matter where we go, to the South Pole, North Pole, to UK or in Malaysia in the Sahara Desert, our body temperature would be around 36 to 37 degrees. And that maintenance of constant body temperature, surprise, surprise, also requires energy. In jellyfish or electric eels, bioluminescence, which is the idea that they glow in the dark, and electrical discharge also require energy. And this is work. Anything that requires energy. This can come up for essay questions, so nothing should be taken lightly. Okay, so when we talk about energy, we need it. And we usually say energy in the form of ATP. Let's try to understand what structure it has and also what characteristics it has. Now, I've briefly mentioned this in chapter 6, but here it's ATP structure and characteristics in more detail. Now, ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. It is a phosphorylated nucleotide. Okay, it has three components. Number one is the adenine nitrogenous base here, exactly the same as DNA and RNA. But it's actually RNA nucleotide because it has a ribose sugar here, which is a pentose sugar, Right here, you can see OH here, OH here, 2OH. That means it is ribose, not deoxyribose. And from the name, you can tell that it's triphosphate, so it has 3 phosphate groups. Now, the adenine and the ribose sugar mix up something we call adenosine, which is a nucleoside. Adenosine is a nucleoside. It is just a combination of adenine and ribose sugar. Therefore, the name became adenosine, which means adenine plus ribose sugar, triphosphate, so 3 phosphate groups. Now, what are the other characteristics of ATP, or the technical term would be, what is the chemical property of ATP? Now, it is very small. It is water soluble, as it is negatively charged here. So it's easily transported throughout the cell. So very good molecule here. It's easily hydrolyzed. When these phosphate groups are broken, or these phosphate groups leave the ATP, energy is released. And not a large amount of energy is released at one time, but small packets of energy are released at one time. Every time you break a phosphate group, a little bit of energy is released. And this is good because, well, you don't want to release a whole bunch of energy and waste and take a little bit and waste the rest, right? You want to have small packets of energy. When you need it, then you break it down. When you don't need it, then you can leave it be. Okay. ATP also can be synthesized and broken down quite quickly. So break the phosphate group, release energy, use energy to join back the phosphate group, then you can use it again. So it's this cycle here happens a lot. This quickness, this rapidness of synthesis and breaking down, we call it a high turnover rate. Now you will see this later on the slides, but this is how high turnover rate is. Every day in 24 hours, your body synthesizes 40 kilos of ATP. But you don't gain 40 kilos because it's all used in a day. So that's how much is synthesized and broken down in your body. So that's what we call a high turnover rate. And all these characteristics makes it ideal as an energy currency in all organisms. What does it mean by energy currency? We will see in a second when we talk about roles. Now, it's very important to realize that ATP didn't come out of nowhere. ATP came from genetic energy-giving reactions. Roles of it is a link, an intermediate energy molecule between energy-giving reactions and energy-requiring reactions. So ATP is sort of like the intermediate person. It takes the energy from the given energy-giving reactions and then gives it to the energy-requiring reactions. Now, an example of an energy-giving reaction would be aerobic respiration, which we will do next video, okay? Aerobic respiration, the one we learn actually, is the complete oxidation of glucose, and it gives a very large quantity of energy. This is the chemical equation, okay? This is glucose plus oxygen, okay? But it's the chemical equation that you need to remember for the complete oxidation of glucose or aerobic respiration using glucose. So glucose here has 6 carbon. You can see the general formula here. C6H12O6 plus 6 molecules of oxygen would be converted to 6 molecules of carbon dioxide. Now, it's important to realize that here there are 6 carbons in glucose, and therefore 6 carbon dioxide is produced. So basically all the carbons have been broken down into and has been separated from the glucose molecule into 6 individual carbon dioxide molecules. 6H2O is produced here as well, water, and you end up with 2870 kilojoules of glucose. Now again, please note that there is This is aerobic respiration. Respiration can also happen in anaerobic conditions, but that's something we will explore afterwards. Okay, before we move on to more roles, I think it's also important to realize that even though we said that, hey, this reaction here can produce 2870 kilojoules per glucose molecule, you should remember, by the way, it's not 100% yield, which means this energy giving reaction might provide 2870 kJ, but the ATP form might not use all the energy, and the excess energy would be lost at different stages in a multi-step reaction. What do you mean by multi-step reaction? Now it looks very easy, right? Just one arrow across. This arrow is actually quite complicated. It's just a very simplified diagram, okay? In those reactions, excess energy is lost. It's not 100% energy transfer, and this energy will be lost as thermal energy or heat energy. The same thing goes when ATP is used. Okay, ATP is broken down and the energy is used in energy requiring reactions. Whatever energy ATP releases when it's breaking down, not 100% will get into the energy requiring reaction. There is some energy loss as heat somewhere. Anyways, moving on to the next role of ATP. Actually, they are all one role. They're just different words to describe the role. Just now we talked about how it was a universal link, right? Going back a little bit, universal link or an intermediate energy molecule. The second one is it is an energy currency of the cell. Now, when you talk about currency, you think of money, right? And it's basically money because, you know, in real life, we don't have system barter anymore, right? We don't have the bartering system. I give you a chicken, and then in exchange, you give me half of your cow. We don't do that anymore. We use cash. We earn money in cash, and then we spend money in the form of cash. Now, same idea with ATP. ATP is an energy currency in the body, so it acts like cash-ish, right? When the energy giving reactions release energy, it will be linked to the production of ATP first, so you earn the energy currency, so-called, and then only then ATP will be used to use in the energy requiring reactions. Now, it's very easily confused with the term energy storage molecule. Just note that ATP is an energy currency molecule, not an energy storage molecule. Energy storage molecules store energy in the form of chemical potential energy, and examples of this would be like glucose, sucrose, glycogen starch, triglyceride. Of course, these polysaccharides here that are complex will be more long-term storage, okay? But ATP is not an energy storage molecule. It does not do this. It is a currency. It's very quickly formed and it's very quickly used, which brings me to my next point. It is an immediate donor of energy to reactions requiring energy. Now, the presence of ATP makes transactions, so-called transactions, really quick because ATP is always available very nearby in the environment. Now, the chemical equation of ATP hydrolysis is something you need to remember as well, and looks something like this. ATP, when broken down, becomes ADP plus inorganic phosphate plus 30.5 kilojoules. So since ATP is nearby, 30.5 kilojoules can be given out very easily. Now, you can write this like this, or you can write it like this. In a full format, because it's a hydrolysis reaction, right? It means water is present. So if you prefer, you can write it like this, more complicated. ATP plus water, okay, there's a reversible arrow. ADP equals to ADP plus H3PO4, this is what inorganic phosphate stands for, plus 30.5 kilojoules. So the removal of one phosphate here results in a release of 30.5 kilojoules of energy. Now, just so you know, again and again, I'll say this, all reactions are reversible when we talk about ATP hydrolysis. Why? Because ATP is synthesized and broken down very quickly, and the nature of it is that the rate of turnover is very high. Now, just now we saw that the breaking of one phosphate group or removal of one phosphate group from ATP will result in ADP, which results in an energy release of 30.5 kilojoules per mole. Now you may be asking, can we remove a second one and the third one from ATP as well? And the answer is yes, you can. Okay, so ATP is adenosine triphosphate. You remove one phosphate group, it becomes adenosine diphosphate. After that, you can remove another one and it becomes adenosine monophosphate. And then you get again 30.5 kilojoules per mole. So it can, from ADP, become AMP. But the third one is slightly different. Okay, you can remove the third one and you result in adenosine, but the energy release is very little. It's just 14.2 kilojoules per mole. Now maybe you're asking me, Miss, do I need to remember these values? And the answer here is bold, is red. If you don't need to remember, I wouldn't put it in the slides lah. So yes, you need to remember these values. Perfect. So that is it for ATP synthesis. That's it for, not ATP synthesis, sorry. That's it for the chemical structure as well as roles of ATP. Quite a short introduction here, but just so I give you a little teaser to next video, this is what's gonna happen. Now, we talked about how ATP is synthesized from energy yielding reactions or energy giving reactions, same thing. For example, the oxidation of glucose in cellular respiration, right? Now, we know the general formula: glucose plus oxygen converted to carbon dioxide plus water plus 2870 kilojoules of energy per molecule of glucose. But the fact is, the truth is, it is more complicated than that general formula there. Now, we are going to be learning in next video how in the world this general formula came about and what exactly happens in between. Okay, and all these has to do with a process called respiration. Ta-da! And here is the definition. It is the process where organic molecules such as glucose, amino acids, glycerol, fatty acids, note that it's not just glucose. Glucose is just the primary example that we like to use because it's simple and elegant, but actually other ones also can, yeah. So organic molecules, whatever you eat and break down, yeah, they are broken down even more in a series of stages. It's a multiple step reaction to release energy, which is used to synthesize ATP. So respiration, the point of it is to synthesize ATP. Break the food down, break the organic molecules down to synthesize ATP. There are two types here that we are going to learn in the next few videos. Number one is aerobic respiration, and number two is anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration occurs in mostly in the mitochondria, requires energy, whereas anaerobic respiration here does not require energy. Don't worry about glycolysis just yet. I'm getting there. Now, in the next video, we'll be focusing solely on aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration is basically the same definition, okay, like we said just now. Breakdown of organic molecules to release energy, which is used to synthesize ATP, plus one more line, in the presence of oxygen, as we mentioned. Now, I mentioned that this is a teaser, and again, it is, but I need you to remember the 4 stages in aerobic respiration of glucose and where it comes from. Because what's going to happen next video is I'm going to teach the entire 4 stages in one video. Crazy, I know, but it's the only way that you will be able to see a huge picture of what is going on. But to facilitate that process, you do need to memorize the names of the stages first, and also where it is located, where it occurs. So here are the 4 stages glycolysis, link reaction, Krebs cycle, and oxidative phosphorylation. Commit this to memory. I asked my previous students to come up with some sort of memory technique, and this is what they come up with, which I sort of like. And the acronym is Girls Like Korean Oppa. Okay, girls like Korean oppa. So girls is glycolysis, like link reaction. Korean is Krebs cycle, and O is oppa, right? So O is oxidative phosphorylation. And they all occur at slightly different places. Glycolysis actually occurs in the cytoplasm, outside of the mitochondria. Yeah. Link reaction and Krebs cycle occurs in the mitochondrial matrix, which is this fluid-filled area inside the cytoplasm. And number 4, oxidative phosphorylation happens in the inner mitochondrial membrane, or what we call the cristae, which is the infoldings of the inner membrane. And these are the areas where they have a lot of membrane proteins, and we're going to see next video what exactly happens at the inner membrane as well as the matrix. So that's it for me. See you next video. Bye!